Hello and welcome to another video. My daughter is joining us today because she is done with her nap and she wanted to sit with Daddy while I do this video, but she's promised that she should be quiet during the video, hopefully. Um, in the past, my videos have been really long, and as you know, I'm doing these videos not just because I want to, but because they're part of my class that I'm taking on the Family Proclamation. And today I want to apply the principles um, that are in the Family Proclamation to a specific topic, but I want to try to keep it shorter than I normally do. I've been requested by my teacher to keep the videos. Hey, remember, you gotta be quiet and not try to draw attention. Um, to keep them under about 5 minutes, if possible, under 10 at the most. So today I want to talk about one of the aspects of leaving a toxic relationship that can be really hard for the person who is leaving um, because they recognize the toxicity in the other person, aka the victim, and that is retaining and also increasing or reobtaining your power in in the relationship or in general. And I want to use the example of my friend Amy. I apologize. In the previous video, she pointed out to me because she watches these that I accidentally said the real name of her daughter and the guy, and I do apologize. Hopefully, if I can get some video editing software, I can go in and just snip those out. Um, but Amy and Chad. Uh, so Amy, as you know, she's been trying to leave this situation with Chad, but they have a daughter together. And recently, Chad requested that he be able to take um, their daughter for a weekend and for a while. But Chad had recently been in a car accident, and the car seat was in the car, and I think even the little girl was in the car when that happened. And so Amy wants him to get a new car seat, um, and he got all uppity about it. And so Amy asked me what she should do. Is it okay for her to demand that he get a new car seat? And how should she go about doing that? And one of the suggestions that she came up with was that when she went to confront him, she could bring a police officer to inspect the car seat for her, because just maybe the car seat is fine. Um, but the law says that if you're in an accident with the car seat in the car, you do need to replace it, regardless of whether it looks like it's damaged or not. Which I informed her of that, as well as her brother informed her of that, and but she still had suggested that idea, or that she take the car seat for him to get it inspected, and that she would even replace it for him. Amiri, would you like to leave?
No.
Okay, then you gotta sit still. Okay. Um, Now both of these are pretty good, valid. Okay, you can have your first snack after I finish my video. These are both valid and no, here, stop. You're making a lot of attention to yourself. Can you sit over here, please? Um, both of these are, on the surface good ideas, but there's a problem with both of them. They they rob Amy of her power in her interaction with Chad. Let me explain. If she brings the police officer, what she's saying is, I can't handle you on my own. I need this person to have authority um, for when I interact with you. And if she chooses to take the car seat herself and go get it inspected or replaced, she is enabling Chad to continue his bad behavior of being neglectful in the care of their daughter. He made a big deal about, like, why do I need to get a new car seat? It should be fine, it's whatever, which shows a disregard for the safety of their daughter, and it shows that he doesn't value that as important, um, and he sees her as an object, not as a person, both the daughter and Amy. Um, so what I suggested to Amy was that in this situation, um, how she could maintain her power and establish proper boundaries, which is part of that relationship, which we've talked about in previous videos, and I may talk about more. That A toxic relationship is one wherein there's an imbalance of power. Um, and for her to establish her boundaries, it should be, I suggested to her that she not allow Chad to take their daughter until he has proven to her that he has purchased and obtained a new car seat that he will be using and has disposed of the old one, um, so that um, she knows ahead of time that he is being safe with their daughter. That's a boundary that she can set and obtain, or and maintain, which is her exercising power in that relationship, setting proper, appropriate boundaries. Um, Now, obtaining and maintaining your power comes in many forms through the many different forms of toxic relationships. Um, and one of and so let's use some examples. Let's say there's Stacy and Marcy, and Marcy was a toxic friend who was always asking for money from Stacy, was always bumming off of her and not paying her back, um, and then was also exhibited other traits like getting upset and offended when Stacy tried to set boundaries of if I'm going to pay for you, you need to pay me back, or I'm not going to pay for you to do this thing, or always be paying for you. And Marcy got upset and called her a bad friend, said mean things to her, or refused to talk to her, gave her the cold shoulder, which are all um, toxic responses to such behavior. Stacy, how she could establish and maintain her power in this scenario is to maintain that boundary that she's not going to pay for Marcy um, to do things anymore, or loan her money that she's not going to pay back. Um, and then if this behavior continues, to cut off that relationship and say, no, if you're going to continue to be a toxic person and be mean to me and just want money from me, then you're not my friend. I'm establishing this boundary. I'm not going to talk to you or hang out with you until you show me a change in behavior, which we've talked about in previous videos. It's okay to re-engage in a relationship with a toxic person after they're not toxic anymore, after they've proven um, that they have consistently and persistently, um, over a period of time, shown that they have changed or are actively and continually engaging in change. Let's say Marcy came to Stacy and said, you know, I've gotten a job, I've begun working, and I want to be able to go do this activity with you, and I'm paying for myself. Um, and she showed Stacy that she had the money on hand ready to pay for herself. In that situation, the boundary is being kept. Stacy's not paying for Marcy to do something with her, and she's not loaning her money. That's an okay time for them to continue a friendly relationship and go do an activity together. Um, Now, if that was a one-time thing, and the next time, maybe Marcy says, "Well, my check hasn't come yet, but it's coming. Could you spot me this one last time?" That one last time might become, one more last time, one more last time, and that would be an example of where the boundary has been crossed again, and Stacy needs to maintain and say, "No, I'm not paying for you. You need to do it. If you're not going to, we can't go do things together." Um, so that's one example of maintaining your power. Um, Another example, the workplace. If you have a toxic boss, um, or rather, let's go with the coworker example. Toxic coworker. Um, a way to maintain your power in that situation. We've talked about getting help where you need help, because sometimes it's just not something that you can control. But what you can control is how much you interact with that coworker, and say, "I will not work on this project for you. I won't do your work. You do your work." And if they complain to management or to the boss, you talk to them and say, like, "This is the boundary. I've noticed this behavior in the past, and I'm maintaining my boundary until they show me some change." And that might seem hard and daunting, especially because in a toxic relationship, oftentimes you've been robbed of so much power and put down so much that you feel like you have no power. Amy expressed to me that she felt like like she was worried that she was being a bad person for denying Chad the ability to take his daughter somewhere, or their daughter somewhere, just because of the car seat. And I reminded her that no, you're not being a bad person by establishing boundaries. That's a symptom of you having been in a toxic relationship. He's been so mean to you and taken so much control that you've almost been hardwired to think opposing that toxic person is inherently evil or bad or sinful in some way. It makes you a bad person. I encourage you to work through that and remember that you're not a bad person for establishing boundaries and having standards for your interactions with that person where it's unavoidable, like in a work scenario or where you have a kid together, um, or where you've had a long friendship like Stacy and Marcy, but Marcy began to have this toxic trait. Um, Establishing and maintaining boundaries is an essential part of maintaining your power in a relationship. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, I think, in other videos. But as I said, I'm trying to keep this video shorter today. And I want to go to the family proclamation real quick before we stop to talk about where this is in the family proclamation. So let's go. I gotta try to share my screen again. So right here in the family proclamation where it says, husband and wife have the solemn responsibility to love and care for each other and for their children. Children are inherited of the Lord. But this is the part I want to point out. Parents have a sacred duty to rear their children in love and righteousness and to provide for their physical and spiritual needs, and to teach them with love and teach them to love and serve one another, observe the commandments of God, and be law-abiding citizens wherever they live. So parents are to teach their children proper boundaries. How to love one another is a proper boundary. Keeping the commandments and being law-abiding citizens are following societal and Lord given boundaries. But you could reread this as individuals have a sacred duty to themselves, to rear themselves in love and righteousness. You have a responsibility to yourself to provide yourself with your physical and spiritual needs. Nobody else can take that from you, and nobody else can fulfill that for you. You have to set boundaries for yourself and be a loving and serving person, a law-abiding citizen, and one who keeps the commandments of God. Maintaining and obtaining the power that you have or have lost in a relationship is about fulfilling yourself, your own needs, and being self-sufficient, but also being humble and recognizing your dependence on the Lord. We talked about in a previous video that you are a child of God, and that in order to escape any toxic relationship, you first have to come to recognize and understand your eternal identity. That's also an essential step in establishing and maintaining your power. Recognizing your self-worth, that you are worth standing up for and fighting for, and that nobody else is required to do that for you. That is your responsibility. And if you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it for you. You can either spend your life as a victim or you can be a victor. I encourage you to go watch a video about that from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints called Hope Works. I forget who the name of the speaker is, but he's talking about his wife and him, and also his growing up having a facial deformity, and then him and his wife not being able to have children, and how their choice to have a victor mentality, not a victim mentality, allowed them to push through that adversity and that difficult time and come to the Lord's rewards and gifts in the time that the Lord would give them. Leaving a toxic relationship is hard, and there's going to be a lot of adversity and affliction that comes, and you're going to have messy interactions with that individual through that separation process. And through that, you need to maintain and continue to obtain your power that you should appropriately have in that relationship, which is done by setting appropriate boundaries and recognizing your self-worth and focusing on standing up for yourself and making sure that your needs and boundaries are kept and met. I know that is true. I encourage you to read the Family Proclamation to the world. I hope you have a great week. Thank you for watching, and the Lord will be with you as you take this journey.